The Motherland has arrived. Unfortunately, I am Superman of Doom. The people of the Motherland have come. Unfortunately, I am Superman of Doom. Chapter 6. Behind the prosperity, not all good things. Quadruple A. Someone robbed. The woman's screams suddenly sounded from a corner of the street. Passers-by on the street looked in horror and saw a middle-aged woman fall to the ground, scattering the grocery basket she was carrying, and a strong masked man with a handbag fled quickly. If you want to blame Iron Man. If he hadn't resurrected me, how could I be here? The masked gangster threw down a sentence without logic. A pair of exposed eyes were bloodshot, and when he saw the pistol he was holding in his other hand, passers-by dodged out in panic. Suddenly, the streets of New York were a mess. If you don't want to get shot, get out of the way for me. The masked gangsters roared lowly. No one dared to stop these outlaws, and pedestrians on the street avoided one after another. And when the pedestrians on the street avoided, only a blonde loli with big eyes and tears remained, still standing on the road blankly. As if she did not notice the masked gangster rushing towards this side. Whose child? Who will save her? Many passers-by who saw this scene had their brains buzzing, seeing that the masked gangster was about to directly hit the little girl. And a commercial drone suddenly lost control and fell obliquely, smashing on the face door of the masked gangster. Fuck! The masked strongman screamed. The corners of his eyes and face were cut by the propeller of the commercial drone. The masked mask also fell off. And he covered his bloody face and fell directly on the street ground. 0007 Shattered Marvel Universe. Snap the tower. Commercial drones and women's handbags fell on the floor tiles of the streets of New York, and drone parts and handbag items were scattered all over the place. Fuck. 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 The corner of the gangster's strong man's eyes was cut by the drone propeller, coupled with his face red and hideous due to pain and anger. It looked like he was shedding terrifying blood and tears. And he climbed up from the ground again, and the pistol tightly clasped in his left palm did not take off. Thereupon, when the gangster strong man struggled to get up, his bloodshot eyes were met with a pair of blue and beautiful eyes. The gangster strong man was shocked in his heart. I saw that the little girl was wearing a brand new and gorgeous floral dress, her body was not stained with a trace of dust, and her eyes were clean and pure. So she stood in place and stared at him stunned. Compared to him, the other party is simply a person from another world. Like an angel, that pure look with incomprehension directly stung his soul. Get out of my way. The gangster strongman only flashed a momentary hesitation, a cruel arc appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he raised the gun in his left hand upward. As if he had completely fallen into the demon of hell. Boom. Under the terrified gaze of the surrounding passers-by, an extended version of Rolls-Royce jumped into the street like a bull, swept through a strong trajectory and crashed into the strongman. And slammed him out before the other party could shoot. The black luxury car followed the trend of a perfect drift with superb car skills, which could stop in front of the dress girl, and smoothly opened the co-pilot's door. Which also blocked the view of passers by observing the cabin. 10 seconds later, the Rolls-Royce, which appeared out of nowhere, restarted, carrying the girl and quickly disappearing into the streets of New York. Leaving behind a gangster strongman who was seriously injured and fell in a pool of blood. Duration. Many passers-by tried to take videos or photos, but strangely, the mobile phones and cameras at the scene failed. After the incident, the local police rushed to the scene. They called the scene surveillance inspection, and found that the surveillance video on the street of the incident was just guaranteed. However, with the testimony of many passers-by at the scene, it was still enough to send the gangsters who were seriously injured to the ground to court and prison. Of course, before that, he needs to be sent to the hospital for rescue. On a major road in downtown New York. The black Rolls-Royce that merged into the traffic slowed down, and on the driverless car, the inside of the cabin was so smooth that there was no sense of bumps. It's just that. The girl sitting in the passenger seat was breathing openly, her chest was also heaving, her blue eyes showed panic, and her immature little face was a little white. Indicating her extreme instability. Monitor the heartbeat, which has jumped to more than 100 per minute. Meng was perfectly able to understand. Besides, she's only 5 years old. I have been living in a hotbed of the highest level of care, but I have just encountered the first life and death crisis in my life alone on the streets outside. Morgan was not scared to cry just now, which already surprised Meng. Turn the air conditioner in the car up slightly. Morgan, Yi thought to himself, feeling that he should still be comforted. A Chiba-sensei, little Morgan suddenly asked. Why? What? Meng was stunned. Why, that uncle just now. That hatred of my father. Hate the Avengers? The girl was obviously still afraid and terrified, and her body was still shaking, but she was eager to know the answer to this question. Meng was silent, and he could still guess the specific reason. It's just that the answer is too realistic and dark. Is it what a 5-year-old girl needs to know? At this age, it is clear that you only need to fill in the beautiful concepts described in fairy tales and cartoons. My name is Morgan Stark. A childish female voice that gradually calmed down sounded in the carriage. With the help of the perspective of the car recorder, Meng can clearly see a pair of blue eyes, and is firmly looking at the smart screen of the car. It was with strength and conviction, as if it came from a family lineage. Yi Meng did not be silent anymore, but asked rhetorically, Morgan, do you know about the flickering incident? Quote, I know. Morgan nodded quickly and responded in a childish voice, the flickering event happened 5 years ago, on Wednesday, June 27, 2018. The Thanos fleet from outer space first attacked the country of Wakanda, and that afternoon, half of the random humans in the world suddenly turned into ashes and mysteriously disappeared. Quote, you actually know this? Surprised that although information about the incident could be found online, Morgan was not born when the flicker incident occurred 5 years ago. Morgan whispered back, I remember, my father has always been very distressed about this when he was alive, so I secretly checked it on the internet myself. Good guy. Does your mom know? Yi Meng continued, then you should know. 3 months ago, half of humanity that had disappeared for 5 years returned, and that's the credit of your father and the Avengers. Morgan nodded, quietly clenched his fists, and pursed his small mouth. He did everything right, didn't he? Quote, that's Iron Man, and it's the result of her father's sacrifice of his own achievements. Of course, he did the right thing. Yi Meng affirmed. Without him, the lost half of the universe life cannot return, forever buried in that sad dark history, leaving a deserted civilized world. Quote, but why? There are still people questioning him. Listen to me, Yi Meng said calmly. In the past 5 years since the flickering incident, some people have come out of grief, some have re-established their families. And major personnel units have also changed. As a result, the missing half of humanity suddenly returns, which leads to chaos and fragmentation of the world, and everyone must readjust to the new order. Quote, the main contradictory factor is resources. Originally, half of the surviving human beings had sufficient resources, but now half of the human race has returned in 5 years, which has led to a serious shortage of various resources. So that the number of plundering crimes has increased several times compared to 5 years ago. So, there are some people who complain about the Avengers. Complain that they saved half of the flickering humanity, complain that they left a broken world. Quote, Eamon's words through the car speaker were extremely calm. Pretty human, isn't it? Morgan was silent. A 5-year-old girl naturally can't imagine how realistic this world is. Black. Really black. Morgan's petite body shook, but a calm and powerful voice continued to sound in the carriage. Morgan, I can tell you, don't care about other people's opinions. Your father is absolutely right. Whatever. Half of the humans who died and came back to life due to the flickering event are completely unqualified to judge that Iron Man has done something wrong in this matter. As an outsider from other worlds, Yi Meng is still very transparent, and in his opinion, there is no current world without Iron Man. People can question the chaos of his private life, they can question his arrogant temperament, but they cannot question his merits of sacrificing himself to make that saving finger. Morgan's azure eyes seemed to flicker for a moment, and she looked at the bustling scenery of New York City outside the window and whispered, Thank you, Mr. Yiba. Quote, Yi Meng did not respond to her again. At this time, Yi Meng's brain was replaying over and over what had just happened on the streets of New York. Now, it can already be fully confirmed. Being an AI itself has a program limit, and when Morgan's instructions are carried out, or when Morgan is protected, his core program restrictions are temporarily lifted. So that it can easily hack into other network electronic products like just now, control the intelligent system of half of the pedestrian street, and walk freely between network circuits. How about lifting this code restriction that may have existed since its inception? Yi Meng was thinking, strands of static electricity circulating in the luxury car circuit. It is imperative to lift the procedural restrictions, otherwise he will be bound to Morgan and unable to freely explore Marvel Dreamlands, let alone reap the benefits of them. 0008 You superhero, I'm a supervillain.